Welcome to Out of Home Insider, the first podcast for media and marketing executives that connects how offline attention creates conversion. My name is Tim Rowe, and for the past 3 years, I've been interviewing guests about their unique experiences in bridging this misunderstood and undervalued opportunity for brands to create alchemy in the real world. Today's guest is Chris Grosso. Chris is the CEO of Intersection, an experience-driven out-of-home media and technology company that delivers programming, consumer amenities, and advertising to cities. In today's episode, Chris and I discuss his background and origin story into out-of-home, the significance of agencies and specialist agencies specifically as critical partners, and the importance of transit advertising and revitalizing cities. The potential of leveraging street furniture as a retail media network to drive foot traffic, and how to create interactive and measurable ad experiences without the costly investment of converting inventory to digital. So, without further ado, let's go.
Welcome, everybody, to the Out of Home Insider Show, a podcast like no other, hosted by the one and only Tim Rowe. Get ready to have some knowledge dropped on you and to be entertained, because nothing's more valuable than food for your brain. So sit back, relax, we're about to dive in as the best industry podcast is about to begin.
Chris Grosso, I'm excited to talk all things transit. We connected a few weeks back around the idea of transit ridership and how does that impact the value of transit inventory kind of at large as we see, now a few years post-COVID. What does post-COVID recovery look like for transit? And that's certainly something that I'm excited to talk about today, but can't thank you enough for being here.
Tim, and thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be on, and I've listened to the podcast a lot, so I guess I'm a longtime listener, first-time podcaster.
Well, we're honored to have you. And a great place to start that we like to start with all of our guests is kind of your origin story. How did you get into out of home?
Yeah, I'm a relative latecomer to out of home. I've been in the industry about 7 years, which makes me call it a newbie. I spent first big chunk of my career as a management consultant working in digital media, then spent a bunch of time in digital media at NBC, AOL, and Hearst. Working in various parts of digital media. And I was finishing up, we had launched a streaming service at Hearst, and I was figuring out what to do next because we were too early. It was about 2013. Wish we'd done the streaming
That's pretty
service.
early, yeah.
Yes. So I was looking for what to do next, had some opportunities there, but I also was always passionate about cities. And I'd met Dan Doctoroff, who was setting up Sidewalk Labs and this company Intersection at the time, and reached out to him and ended up coming over to Intersection to run corporate development right after the company was established through the merger of Titan and Control Group. And that's how I got into the out-of-home industry. Really started as a digital media person, but I was also interested in cities. And what I always loved about Intersection, which I can talk a bit about in a second, is, we're a great place for people who are passionate about cities, passionate about media, and passionate about technology. We're kind of sit in between all of those three things.
And how do you see, talk a little bit about post-COVID recovery, how do you see the city landscape changing? And, the future of cities has been a hot topic in a lot of mainstream publications. What do you see changing most?
Well, what's become very important is cities need to have both be very livable and be multi-use. So I think cities where the downtown is just commercial have a harder time, right? Because of hybrid work, you've got less commuters. But where cities that have a vibrant residential areas, vibrant downtowns with a lot of people living there, like downtown New York City, the financial district is a great example of that. They'll do fine because there's a huge amount of people who like living in cities, like to live, being able to walk to places. I live in Manhattan and can walk to work sometimes, which is great. My kids go to school in Manhattan. We're really happy to be here, and even if I didn't have my job here. I think that the ability for cities to be livable and be great places to live has made that when you look at a place like New York City, while maybe there are fewer people on Mondays and Fridays in the office districts in Midtown, there's many more people on Mondays and Fridays in all the residential areas. And I think so I think cities, the traffic flows within cities are certainly a little bit different because of hybrid work. But the fact cities are alive and well, because I think there's millions and millions of people who love living here, and cities that can have lots of activities and reasons for people to be in the downtown area, and going out to shows and going out to bars and restaurants and that kind of thing are doing really well. And we're seeing that in places like New York or Philadelphia or Chicago. There's just a lot of activity in these cities beyond just work. And people are coming back to work, but they may be coming back 3 days a week, and that's okay if there's a lot of other stuff to do.
And being in the business, we see transit advertising, we see out-of-home advertising, and we appreciate it because we're all so enthusiastic about out-of-home. But transit specifically plays kind of an unsung role in the partnership between public and private entities within a city, and being able to provide access to a common good, that being transit, as a form of transportation. How important is transit advertising from that sense for rebooting cities and playing that role?
It's huge in a couple of ways, and transit's a bit of a misnomer for a lot of these contracts, but cities need amenities, and in many cases, these amenities are things like a bus shelter, street furniture program, or the LinkNYC program that we built in New York with Wi-Fi kiosks and cell phone charging and real-time information. Cities need these amenities, and they have no real way. They don't have the expertise or the financing way to pay for them. So when you can put together a public-private partnership to bring assets to street level, like a bus shelter or like a Wi-Fi kiosk, that allows the city to get the infrastructure and the support that it needs and the tools that it needs, and doesn't have to put money out. It may not have the expertise to do that kind of work. So, we've had a lot of success at Intersection. We're really focused on bringing consumer amenities, content, and data-driven advertising to big center cities. In many cases, that's through a partnership with the city to bring an amenity that the city might not otherwise be able to get. And so Intersection's really built a strong business doing that. There are other companies that have also done really interesting things as well, like JCDecaux and Outfront, with these public-private partnerships that are important to, generate revenue for the city. But I think more importantly, bring the amenity to the city, because, in the grand scheme of things, in the budget of New York City, the amount of money that they get from Link is, it's good, but it's not huge.
Sure.
But they would never be able to put the Wi-Fi kiosks up, or or never get the bus shelters up. And in transit, so that's the deals we do with cities. We also work a lot with transit authorities, and the transit authorities frequently, they like the revenue because they need it. It's a source of alternative revenue on top of fare box, and they need to figure out how to have a diversified revenue stream to support the transit authority. But they also need the amenity because they need to drive ridership. So a lot of what we've done with our transit partners, like places like the CTA in Chicago or SEPTA in Philadelphia, or now MARTA in Atlanta, is we roll out we do the advertising, but we take some of that money, some money we pay to the transit authority, some of that money we reinvest back into the system through things like real-time information systems. Tell me what time my train is coming, tell me what bus is coming, tell me what's happening on the system, maybe promoting ways to drive ridership and using our medium, which we're using for sell advertising on, but we're also using to promote the system and drive ridership on the system. That actually has a huge impact. And a lot of times the ability to improve the rider experience to the transit authority is more important than the revenue. The revenue is really important too. They want both, but those two things together are important. And I think what we haven't probably done as much as we should is advertisers, not only are they getting the benefit of reaching this great audience and driving their business, but they're also aligning themselves with, supporting these government entities that need their support. And, we've done a lot of that as well, where, we've had brands, adopt stations in places like New Jersey Transit or Philadelphia that have long-term deals that can help, finance the stations, but also build their brands as in a socially responsible way.
And that really segues nicely into one of the core themes of our initial conversation around the context of transit advertising. That could be everything from a bus interior to a transit shelter to a Link kiosk. There's a lot of different formats available to us in that toolbox. How do you think of advertisers using transit advertising to create the most engagement in that contextual moment?
Well, a lot of what we can drive is location. So particularly, again, around the street furniture programs that are done where you have bus shelters or kiosks that are really at street, or urban panels that are really at street level, we can hyper target individual locations so you can reach audiences at the neighborhood. So that might be, if you're a quick service restaurant, putting a geofence around your restaurant and saying, hey, go to my restaurant to get chicken sandwiches over here because we're having a sale on chicken sandwiches, and that could run at 11 o'clock to 1 p.m., 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., and you go get lunch. I guarantee you, every time we've looked at the data on this stuff, you'll see foot traffic because people see, oh, yeah, I'll get a chicken sandwich for sale. Yeah, I'll go get a chicken sandwich. It's the right context. You're hitting people at the right time and the right location. So I think time and location is a very powerful tool for us. You can do that, in digital. And then you can also do that with some of the more traditional formats as well. So, we sell ads on the sides of buses. Those can go deep into neighborhoods, reach people in their neighborhoods. And that's another form of targeting. That's pretty effective way to target a mass audience in a neighborhood in a city.
And how do you think about that from a company approach, even just holistically as an advertiser, as an advertising enthusiast, the digitization of inventory, taking what has traditionally been static, turning a lot of it into digital, plugging it into programmatic pipes? What do you have a thesis on it? Does Intersection have a thought to all of that?
Yes. I think it's really important to digitize the right assets. And at the core, it has to have enough audience for the digitization to make sense. Because if you're going to put a digital sign somewhere, you got to bring power and you have to pay for the sign. So it's a lot of capital. And if you don't have enough audience going past that sign, you're never going to have the amount of ad impressions necessary to, make that pay off. So we're very selective and increasingly more selective on what do you digital, what do you leave static, both for the reason that you want to only invest in places where it's going to pencil out. But then importantly, what we found over the last few years, I got here, I thought everything should be digital. I was a digital media guy. I thought everything should be digital. But I realized the traditional static advertising is still very, very valuable for a lot of reasons. Some advertisers want 100% share of voice, and that's really important. Sometimes the art looks really good if it's printed properly. Sometimes you can do really cool things in static with props. All the advertising now with QR codes, what we found is QR codes are a lot more effective on a static sign than a digital sign because you got to get your phone out while it's flipping as opposed to it's there.
Right.
And that segues into what I think is also an important point, which is a lot of the goodness you get out of digitizing a sign, you can still get out of a static sign because you can get that interactivity through people's mobile phone and mobile device. In some ways that could be better. And a lot of the measurement techniques that we use, whether they be Geopath or cubic or Foursquare, because it's based on a digital device graph within the viewshed of the sign, that measurement and attribution doesn't matter whether it's digital or static. So effectively, what we're doing is taking our digital technologies and overlaying it on the static inventory. So you get a lot of that goodness you'd want out of digital without having to actually put up the capital to do the digital, because those two things are separate. And that was a realization that took me a couple of years to sort of think about, because when you come out of this from digital, you think it's all about the digital screen. It's not. It's about the data and what you can do with the data, and the mobile phone around the sign is just as important as what you do on the screen itself.
It's really interesting, and thinking about that through a buy side perspective, it's so hard to keep up with who's doing what and who's got what and what are the methodologies and what's the technology available. And that's something where at ODN, I'm personally super grateful for our friend Justin Litt and the opportunity to collaborate with partners who know their inventory so intimately, know the capabilities so intimately. What's your take on collaboration? Is it something that there's an even greater opportunity for? Maybe what's the right way to go about it? How do you think about collaboration?
Well, I think the the agencies, particularly the specialist agencies, are critical partners in making this all work, because historically out of home's been very fragmented, and the ability for the agency to help the client navigate these different formats is really important. So I think, the channel partnerships we have with our, agency partners is crucial to getting that right. And thanks for the compliment for Justin. He's great.
Shout out, Justin.
Yeah. And we're excited by the partnerships we've had with ODN and your team as well. But I do think that need for the ecosystem to work together is important, because, if you look at out of home, we're a $9 billion-ish industry in the United States media. We're not that big compared to the rest of the industry. So to get the attention and being able to get the budgets that we want to be able to get, which we think we deserve, given the value of the inventory that we can bring, none of us, not even the biggest out-of-home companies, have enough oomph to be able to have the conversations with the huge advertisers in the way that a Google or a Facebook can do, or even the big TV networks. We're not a big industry, right? So we need to band together to be able to, get the types of budgets that we all want to get. I mean, you look at the Geopath numbers on the amount of impressions in out of home. We're a $9 billion, $10 billion industry in the United States. We should be a $20 billion industry, but we're not going to get there. All of us working together, all of us working separately. We got to work together. It's kind of, it's kind of like the ancient Greeks, like all the city states got to work together to We're a fragmented industry, and none of us are that big. Even the big guys we see as big guys aren't that big in the grand scheme of the media business.
It's a great point, and a good dovetail into this question of what would you like to see more of from the industry?
I think we got to do a better job, and we're doing a better job on measurement and standards. We have to make it easier for out of home buyers to buy out of home, and we need to do a better job, or continue to do a better job, of telling the story of how our media is very valuable, not vis-a-vis other out-of-home media, but vis-a-vis other media. If you look at buying, for instance, the Link network in New York City, I think our reach is, we reach almost all New Yorkers in New York City with the Link network. That's really powerful. There's not a lot of media that can do that. The Super Bowl, probably, I don't know the exact numbers, but probably reached 40% of New Yorkers, right? And so trying to get as a mass reach medium in these major cities, we have a lot of power, and there's not a lot of places where you can go outside of out of home to be able to reach a city and blanket a city and have that kind of scale. That's hard to do. Even online, it's hard to do, because so much of online is sort of hyper targeting, which is great for certain applications. But if you really want to reach the city of New York or Philadelphia or Chicago or any of these cities, doing the out-of-home advertising and with one publisher or multiple publishers is the way to be able to do that in a way you can't do that in any other sort of media. So I think out-of-home is the best media, particularly if you want a location target or reach a city across the entire landscape.
All right, here's a zinger for you. Do you have a favorite out-of-home format or a favorite market, or is there a piece of the portfolio that excites you most?
Well, it all excites, right? But I think, look, I'll say two things. I think LinkNYC is the best media in the best city in the world. I'm saying that as a New Yorker, so I'm
maybe a little biased, but
I think,
but we like it too, yeah.
Link's a great product. You can reach, all of New York, and you can do that in a fabulous city. And I'm sure, there are folks in Chicago and Philadelphia who say they've got great cities. I think the other market but we have a lot of great markets. What we're doing in Philadelphia is interesting, because we have, we work with the transit authority, but we also work with the city. So we have the bus shelters, and we have all the mass transit in Philadelphia. And what we're starting to do is build an integrated communication system that's both above ground and below ground.
It's interesting
for the city to be able to use to start to communicate with citizens on things like, when is my train coming, emergency messaging, citizen engagement, and being able to have that cohesive experience for citizens is pretty powerful. And we can even now extend that to the mobile phone because we put where we don't have digital signs, but we have bus shelters. We put QR codes so you can scan your QR code and get a lot of the same real-time information onto your phone. So we have that cohesive experience for the citizen, and you can really help both reboot Philadelphia and help Philadelphia make this transition to a multimodal transportation system. But at the same time, and we also have Lincoln Philadelphia too, bringing free Wi-Fi. But at the same time, you also can start to do really exciting things for the advertisers because we can give you an above ground and below ground experience that's cohesive, where you can get people on the train, on their way home, on the bus, and get them at all stages of their journey and be able to, reach pockets of the Philadelphia audience where you might want to reach them. So, Philadelphia, I love as a market for us because we have, we can give people the entire experience, both on the advertising side and the consumer side and the government side, because we have both of the contracts together. And I think it's really powerful particularly for the cities themselves, because the ability to have, cohesive experience for the user when you get off the train, connect to your bus, connect to your bike share, and have that all cohesive is really important.
And from an advertiser standpoint, we appreciate creating that much attention for the screens, for the format, right? It's not just these are screens that run advertising all day because they're providing this public good. They've got engagement. They've got eyeballs. People are relying on them as a valuable resource in their daily journey.
Yeah, for sure. And we've done some research on this, that the engagement, we have real engagement on these screens. People look at the screen, but it makes sense. I mean, when I first came to New York, you'd sit on the platform. We don't do New York subways. Outfront does. They do a good job as well. But like you're on the New York City subway, you didn't know when the train was coming, and that was very frustrating to the rider.
Right. It's kind of like a table stakes thing. We say it kidding now, but it's like, all right, it'd be helpful to know when it's coming.
Yeah, you want to know when the bus is coming. We do the bus times on Link, so you can go by. You know when your bus is coming. It makes a difference. And you look at it sometimes and say you may change what you do. Maybe you take the train. Maybe you walk. But it's important for people to do that. And I think increasingly, this type of real-time mobility information is going to be important as we go to a much more multimodal transportation system in cities, where you might take a bus, you might take a train, you might take a Revel bike, you might take a city bike share, you might take a scooter. You have a lot of transportation options now coming out of the pandemic. People have a ton of transportation options, and being able to navigate those is really important, so you can move people from place to place within the city.
And Chris, how do you answer, or how do you respond to sometimes what's I think it's part of the education gap, but maybe for a first time advertiser considering transit advertising is not just for folks that are taking transit. It is for the population that's moving through the area. How do you handle that misnomer?
Yeah, so we like to look at the we start always with the data. And this is something we got very smart on during the pandemic, right? Because transit ridership went way down during the pandemic for sure. But, if you look at, say, the bus, if you think about one of the biggest transit formats is the bus. The bus, people riding the bus has nothing to do with what the value of the media is on the bus, because most of the media on the bus is outside the bus, whether you wrap the bus or put the Ultra Super King, which is you put a giant poster on the side of the bus. These are huge ads. They go around the city and people see them in their cars, and they see them when they're walking by. So you start with that data and you say, wow, one of these buses is reaching, hundreds of thousands of people on its month-long journey around the city. So it's, got more reach than, say, a billboard. But you need to have that data to be able to tell that story. So one of the things we did was working with a company called Street Metrics. Not only do we have the geopath numbers for these buses, but what Street Metrics does is they have all the transit authorities give out the GPS on the bus. So you can take that GPS data and map it against your device graph and understand a panel of actually who's seen the ads on the sides of the bus. And that allows us to start talking about what the as delivered impressions would be, because we can track where the bus went. We can track who saw, not individually, but in a privacy friendly way, a panel of that you can start to extrapolate how many people actually saw the ad, and even look at what post behaviors were on some of those people who saw the ads, which could be foot traffic attribution or what they did on the web. And lo and behold, when we ran these studies, we found there's a massively effective form of advertising because it's extremely cost effective, and people see the bus ads on the side of the bus, and they go do something after they see the ad.
And with yeah, it's the quantifying the impact, I think, is definitely at least built a bridge over some of the education gap, and giving advertisers the confidence to invest in the channel and to come back and do it again and to scale and to test new formats. You touched on a few things there, and proximity really emerging as one of the superpowers of transit advertising. And we've seen a lot, and we've heard a lot about retail media networks, and we know that Amazon's, gobbling up all sorts of ad revenue, but there's a lot of brick and mortar companies that have physical retail media networks, and in ways, transit intersection, you similarly have assets that could be leveraged like a retail media network.
Yeah, for sure. And we're working on that right now. Street furniture in particular is well suited to this because you have literally signs. I have a link outside my local grocery store that I walk by whenever I got to get milk or eggs. And I say, like, why isn't the CPG company have a big ad there, or the supermarket have the circular on the link to get me to go in? I have no doubt that would drive incremental traffic. So these signs right outside stores, and Link, we've looked at this. We've left 400 signs within 250 feet of drugstores.
Wow.
We've got 200 signs within 250 feet of a Target. Those signs are really valuable inventory for if you're a CPG or the retailer itself to be able to use that to drive foot traffic. We just got to connect the dots around the data and find the right buyers and sellers to do it. But I feel in my bones that's a big opportunity for us, but it's also a big opportunity for anyone who has a street furniture network. There's other people who run street furniture networks in other cities. And I think as an industry, that's one where, again, if we can come together as an industry, we could unlock a lot of value both for the marketers, the retailers, and ourselves, because I can do this. I can do this at scale in like probably 4 or 5 cities, or intersection can. But if you start, Deco and others can probably do 3 or 4 cities as well, and then all of a sudden you get, if you can come together, you can do a lot of cities at once. And that's why I think that's an area where, again, the industries or the agencies can help drive as well, because the agencies have that ability to cobble together, multiple publishers.
It's definitely exciting. We hear it from advertisers. They're excited about it. They're excited about seeing more of the, location intelligence data that's specifically tied to, their store and what's close by, the audiences that go to that store, how they move through the buyer's journey, and just continue to see in these types of environments how appropriate and how perfectly suited transit is. We were working on something the other day for a QSR. This was part of the project with Justin, and to be able to demonstrate not only the ability to dynamically daypart creative, but to use these link kiosks as like digital directionals, right? It's a brand that loves to use traditional static roadside as a directional, hey, go here. And that's something that the link units are really designed for. It's not just, hey, we can put them close by, but you have the ability to do some dynamic mapping things too. Is that right?
Yeah. We did this unit a couple of years ago. And one of the things we pride ourselves on is a lot of us, not just me, came out of digital background. So we think of these screens as mobile phones that don't move.
I love that.
So, you think about people who, doing these DSPs where they're trying to target mobile phones and around geofences, like we have a gigantic one of these that don't move. So we think about these units really, whatever you can do in HTML, you can do on a link, or other digital signs as well that we have in other cities. So one of the things we did was what we call the mapping unit, and it's very simple. It has the ad, and then we take a piece of the ad at the bottom and have a little map to show you how to get from point A to point B. You're here, and the ATM is here, or the restaurant's here, or whatever the place you want people to go, and people can look and sort of, and we try to make the map, the orientation correct so that you can kind of, understand where it goes. but we do a lot of that. One of my favorites, we're doing less now post-pandemic, but we used to, when movies would launch, you would take over the whole Link network for the movie launch night at like 6:00, and then it would resolve and tell you like where the nearest theater was and where the tickets were available in the show times. So I do think that like real-time location-based real-time data is pretty powerful. But mapping's probably been our the mapping unit's been probably our most effective, or just in terms of like people who want to buy it, unit that we've sold over the last couple of years, because it just makes sense. It's I'm trying to get you to do something. I should tell you where the thing is.
Sure, it's the least you could do, right? If you're close by, hey, it's over here. We would have had a sign spinner back in the day, maybe. I like that. Mobile phones that don't move.
We compete with the sign spinner,
Yeah.
I always say, like, we compete with the guy who has the sign outside the subway.
Absolutely. And mobile phones that don't move. For folks that don't know, I was so amused when I learned this. For folks that don't know, can you tell everyone what happened to all of the payphones in New York City?
We took them out,
and they are now.
Where are they?
Well, they're now they're link units. For folks that don't know, we ultimately converted the.
Yeah, so the whole company was founded as a consortium to bid on the New York City said, let's reinvent the payphone.
Okay.
So Titan, which was one of our predecessor companies, had the payphone franchise in New York, ran all the payphones. In fact, even when I first got here, we still had a ton of payphones. We did like $1 million a year of coins in the payphones in like 2017. Wow. People still using the payphone. But we took all the payphones out and put Link in its place, because how did you reinvent the payphone for the digital age? It's digital. You get Wi-Fi, you get communications, you make a phone call. We have a lot of people come make phone calls on the payphone.
No kidding.
Yeah, there's a place to make a phone call. In fact, my kids, before they got cell phones, would know about it. If it was an emergency, they could call on the phone. At one point, we had a little gimmick where you could call and leave a voicemail for Santa Claus. But like we've done fun things with the phone. But there was a phone and other pieces of the kiosk. And then we took the last we removed the payphones. Some of them went to the garbage. Some went to the dump. Some went to museums. A few of our executives actually brought home a payphone. Cool. We left 4 of them up on West End Avenue. They're the old Superman style payphones, just for tourists, and they're working. You can make a phone call. And then we took the last one up last year, and I was blown away by the amount of media coverage we got when the last payphone was taken out of New York City. It was stunning. It was like a global story about how the last payphone was removed from New York City. It was probably, we were kind of shocked that it was such a big deal, but it was, people have a special relationship with their payphones.
Definitely.
There's 4 left. I think 66th and then 80th, 90th, and 100th on West End Avenue. You can still make a payphone call in New York City. They're the last 4. We don't have any ads on them. We run them on behalf of the city as a tourist attraction, and people do come and use them sometimes.
I love that. Next time I'm nearby, I'm going to have to.
West End Avenue, you can make a phone call on the payphone. They still work. I think you may need a quarter, maybe 50 cents.
Do my best, Clark Kent. All right, cool. You've been through so many significant changes in Intersections history, and I didn't know this until we talked that first time, but that Place Exchange was born inside of those walls. Can you just give us like the 60-second history on where did Place Exchange come from?
Sure. So I was the COO at the time. Our CEO, Ari Buchalter, had come from Media Math. I was the CEO of Intersection. And we were looking for how do we plug our digital signage networks into the omni-channel DSPs. And Ari had come from that world. He had built Media Math DSP. So we built out our own set of tools to connect our screens to Trade Desk and Media Math and all the DSPs. And what we found is it was great. I mean, we did well, but we looked at it and we said, hey, we should be doing this for everybody. Like, it doesn't make sense to just do this for Intersection. So we started integrating all the other publishers. And we just got to the point, it was like, hey, if we're really doing this for other publishers, it really shouldn't live in Intersection. So we spun it out, and Ari actually went with that business and runs that business today. And I stayed with the original publishing business, because I was always a media guy anyway, and took over as CEO of Intersection. But we spun Place Exchange out as an independent company, and they've done great. And it's good for them to be independent because we're a client. They're a great partner of ours, but you know what? Outfront and Lamar and all the other, publishers, are working with them. So it's good that they're independent and not just, working with us. And that's really unlocked a lot of value for them. And I think a lot of value for the industry because, we're lucky in industry. I think we have several really smart teams building out SSPs that will benefit all of us as an industry. And, I think Place Exchange is a great example of that.
Chris, last question for anyone that might be listening, thinking about their own career. We've had so many amazing guests, and it's a question that I am making a more focused effort to ask going forward. What advice do you have somebody that's maybe either starting out in their career or, moving into that middle phase of their career and really deciding like, all right, I want to raise my game. I want to get to the highest level possible. What advice would you give them?
I think I'd say pick a major and commit, meaning builds a set of expertise around an industry or a function and get really, really good at that, because I think that level of commitment's important. And what I've also found is sticking it out at a company a bit longer than you think is good as opposed to moving, because I think when you stick at a company for a while, you build a lot of institutional knowledge and opportunities. If it's the right company and it's a company of enough scale, oftentimes opportunities will present themselves in the company if you're there, and being at the right place in the right time is a really key piece of that. And you're much more likely to be at the right place at the right time if you stick at a place and have a track record. So I think sticking at a place and having a track record, I mean, obviously you have to make career moves at times, and that, no one's going to work at the same place for 20 years anymore, but, spending a decent chunk of time will create those opportunities. But then I also think you got to commit, you got to pick a major at some point. It's very hard. Trying to be a generalist is going to be increasingly hard, and you have to be, good at something. It could be a function, it could be an industry, but it's always better to be good at something as opposed to, jack of all trades.
Amen. Couldn't think of a better place than it. We set out with an ambitious roadmap today. We wanted to talk about a lot of things. I think we got them all, Chris. I think so. Anything you want to add?
No, this has been great. I really appreciate it. A lot of fun. And thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you so much for being here. And if you found this to be helpful, please share it with somebody who could benefit. As always, make sure to smash that subscribe button. That's how you help the podcast grow. And we'll see y'all next time.
Quarter century, I finally came to my senses. I finally got my hand up on the tinted Benz, kid. I see the world clear through my tinted lenses. With the dream and the drive, the possibilities endless. Now print that, send this all the way to Tokyo. Take a trip down south, down to Mexico. Next stop, Shanghai, the world-class trade show. First class all the way, cause that's how we roll. Yeah, call us the rock star businessman. Rockin' shows, we handle business, man. We got our own future in the palm of our hands, cause divided we fall and together we stand. Old friends trip when they see the new.